right, hello, good morning, good evening, good night, even, depending on when you're listening to this. Welcome back to Unqualified Analysis, folks, hosted by yours truly, Caleb, not OJ Simpson, coming at you here, pre-recorded from the Closet of Solitude, coming off a long day of work, running on an industrial level of caffeine. I mean, I drank like 3 or 4 cups of coffee today, and now I'm drinking a Coke. So, I mean, your boy is amped, absolutely fired up, okay? We're back. It's Unqualified Analysis. I'm your host, Caleb. You can find me on the socials at CalebVUA. If you're watching on YouTube, it is down bottom right of the screen. Maybe that's this side. I don't know. I'm kind of stupid, so that is what it is. We got some stuff to talk about today. It's a little bit of extension talk, a little bit of news, a little bit of gossip. Get into a little bit of gossip. It is the off season, so you got to do what you got to do. Both the finals in the NHL and the NBA are looking like possible gentleman sweep material. Let's go, Connor McDavid. Come on. Let's get this thing going. Come back from a 3-0 deficit. That would be awesome. Either way, starting this thing off, fun fact, purple dye was initially created by the Phoenicians in the 16th century BC. It was created through a very expensive process, which in turn made it a very expensive commodity, and as a result, only the richest and most powerful could afford to buy purple dye, i.e., business moguls and royal families. This is why purple is the color of royalty, and there you know it. There you go. If you didn't know it, now you do. That's the reason why purple is the color of royalty, folks. So today we've got some stuff to... trying to erase this and talk at the same time. Got some stuff to talk about. We got some NFL headlines. Enough for a decently lengthed episode here. I'm not going to go over the top, but I got some stuff to talk about. So without further ado, I am going to drink a big wallop and gulp of this here Coca-Cola, and then we're just gonna get straight into it as I get on over to the headlines here. Oh yeah, we got some stuff to talk about, dude. Both in football and outside of football, we got some stuff to talk about. So let's get this thing going. Yep, that's confirmation of one of the headlines coming across the headline here. Timeline. I don't know, Twitter notifications and whatnot. This thing is almost gone, so we're just gonna hammer this thing real quick. Hold on, 2 seconds. Wait for it. There's some aftershock there. Aftershock might have been more powerful than the main event there. But let's get into this damn thing, shall we? Starting off, going from energy to death. R.I.P. Jerry West. The logo himself, even if that did make him uncomfortable during his time. Absolute icon of the NBA game. Somehow only one championship. Went there 9 times, though, to the finals. There's a reason he's the logo. He was... a fantastic basketball player. He will be sorely missed, even if he is a curmudgeonly old man who had some political views that a lot of the NBA players currently may not necessarily identify with personally. But that's besides the point. Who cares? He's a basketball icon. So rest in peace to Jerry West. Death is always sad. We're losing legends left and right, man. Just losing legends left and right. Bill Russell, Bill Walton, now Jerry West, the humanity. I mean, O.J. Simpson is in there as well. That's a classic one of these things. It's not like the others, but rest in peace to Jerry West, leaving behind a legacy that is going to be hard to catch up to for a lot of these players. But, a titan in his own right. That's the lead signal that I don't have a whole lot more to say, but he was an icon, and respect is due, therefore respect is given. So, On to my bailiwick. We're talking about football here. Another young QB just got a bag on Thursday as, excuse me, had to, there's still some aftershocks coming. I drank a lot of Coke there, just for a second. I drank a lot of Coke. Could you imagine if that thing still had cocaine in it? Imagine how fucking amped I would be. Good Lord, that would be a sight to behold. Either way, another young quarterback got a bag on Thursday. Trevor Lawrence, Jacksonville Jaguars. You knew this one was coming down the pipe at some point. He gets a massive 5-year, $275 million extension, $142 million guaranteed at signing, $200 million guaranteed. Whatever that means. They call it practical guarantees now. So I guess just if he's on the roster in 3-4 years, that's I guess it becomes guaranteed. I don't know. They locked him up for a huge extension though, $55 million a year. The new highest paid player in NFL history. Goodness gracious, pup. Goodness gracious. How you doing? How you doing? I'm not going anywhere. There's not a magic portal in this closet. It's just, it's just me. So I guess for right now, I will I'll do the show with the dog in the closet. So either way, $200 million guaranteed, big time deal for a player that hasn't necessarily broken out yet, hasn't quite lived up to that high potential that he was seen having coming out of college. Part of that is, the Urban Meyer experience. Then you get to, Doug Peterson helps out a lot more having a real NFL coach on your side there. You had to, deprogram him a little bit from some of the bad habits he learned under Urban Meyer. My goodness, this is a lot of hair. A lot of hair, dog. My goodness. And now I'm not sure she knows how to get out of here from here, but you know what? That's okay, pup. That's okay. That's all right. I like having you here. You can shelter your head underneath of my leg. That's okay. That's simply okay. You can't tunnel through to the other side though. That's all right. All right. All right. She found her way out. She found her way out. You be good, pup. I'll be back there in just a minute. All right. So that derailed what I was talking about. But back to the issue at hand. So the Jaguars made their financial commitment. Maybe not necessarily the breakout star that you would hope he would have been by this point. But, he's a classic, tape versus numbers guy. If you just look at the numbers from last year, you're like, did Trevor Lawrence really deserve this big-time contract? I'm telling you, man, I was on that side for a while, too, because, I'll tell you what, I didn't watch a whole lot of Jaguars games last year. I know, bad podcaster right now, not watching any of the Jaguars. But, you don't even need to necessarily watch the film itself. You can just go on to Twitter, look up Trevor Lawrence drop touchdown passes, and there is a whole highlight reel of drop touchdown passes from last year. And even with that, he had some solid numbers, but there were touchdown pass after touchdown pass after touchdown pass where Trevor Lawrence threw a dot, the only possible place that he could put it for his man to make a catch, and that guy just dropped it. Absolutely whiffed at the end of the day. So maybe numbers-wise, it's a hard one to justify right now. But on one hand, the sooner you pay him, the lower the eventual cost is going to be. What are you going to wait for someone else to get a deal? I think Tua is pretty much the last one on the docket to get paid at this point. But you wait for another guy to get a deal. Next thing you know, you're paying $60 million instead of $55 million, which over 5 years, $30 million you're adding on to this whole thing. So I guess it behooves them to get the deal done now. And now that he has the contract, they can kind of do some cap finagling to spread out that cap hit, especially if you're planning on that guy being there for the next decade or something like that. You can afford to kind of kick the can down the road for now, worry about that later, just keep spreading out the cap hit, and see if you can build a team around Trevor Lawrence. But that's that I mentioned that too. That Dak Prescott thing. It is going to be interesting to see what they get. I'm listening to a little bit of Pardon My Take now. Noted fan fiction writer Mike Florio talking about, hey, maybe the Dolphins don't want to pay Tua Tagovailoa $55 million a year. Maybe they can find some replacement level guy for half the price. Say Kirk Cousins goes into his second year. He's getting paid $27 million and some change next year. And maybe the Falcons are ready to go ahead with Michael Penix. So you trade for Kirk Cousins. Next thing you know, you're paying a guy 27-some million dollars a year, as opposed to paying literally twice that much for Tua Tagovailoa, which we're still not entirely sure how good he is and how much his success is due to the brilliance of Mike McDaniel as a play caller. And make no mistake, it is brilliance at all levels. In the second year, I was not a great believer in the first year. This past year, Mike McDaniel's offense, oh boy, did he hit his stride as a play caller and as an offensive designer. I always kind of thought, as far as the design was concerned, that was never the question. It was just about, place and time, play calling, kind of got away from the run a lot of times. That was not the case last year, and I think he's only going to get better in year 3 as a play caller. That's the thing too. Mike McDaniel's only in year 3, so it kind of, again, brings us back to the question, how much is Tua? How much is Mike McDaniel and just that bevy of weapons that Tua has around him with all that is at his disposal? It's interesting. And honestly, the contract itself for Trevor Lawrence isn't the most interesting thing in the world. I mean, it's the Jaguars. Call me a non-believer, call me disrespectful. I have a hard time seeing any Trent Baalke run team make a deep playoff run. That's just me. Never happens to be Trent Baalke's fault somehow. Always seems to be someone on the shit end of the credit line there. So I don't know. I don't really care too much about the Trevor Lawrence deal with as far as the Jags are concerned. I don't have a whole lot of faith in them. I am interested though in how that deal and the Jared Goff deal, all the deals that have been signed this offseason, how they affect the guys that are coming up next. Again, Tua and Dak Prescott. Will those teams allow those quarterbacks to hit free agency, or will they pay them what they want? That's the real interesting thing for me here. And I'm really interested to see how both of those teams kind of make this work, because I could definitely see Tua Tagovailoa hitting free agency after this upcoming season. They just, they decided to ride with a cheaper option at quarterback, leaning on the brilliance of Mike McDaniel to kind of carry them the way. Dak Prescott's a little bit different. He's got massive cap hits the next 2 years. I mean, it's like $56 million this year. It's $54 million the next year. They need to restructure his contract in some way to spread out that cap hit and make it so they can build a team around Dak Prescott. Although, Jerry Jones says he's all in. Jerry Jones says a lot of things, but I don't know. They haven't really put their money where their mouth is just yet in this offseason. Maybe there's more profitable ventures that they've been putting money into, a la oil, whatever else happens to be in the Jones portfolio. But, they said they were going to go all in. Haven't seen a whole lot of results in that front. And honestly, a lot of that has to do with Dak Prescott kind of weighing down the cap hit and the Cowboys refusing to budge and make something happen, which is, it's kind of the Cowboys' MO. They've been known to pay their guys. They've just been known to pay them later than expected. I think the real thing to look at for that Cowboys team is who gets paid first. Is it going to be CeeDee Lamb or is it going to be Dak Prescott? Because if they pay CeeDee Lamb first, boy, oh boy, does that get interesting. And I know Dak Prescott, he'll never allow it to seep into the locker room. He's a fantastic leader, a leader of men, if you will, if you want to use the stereotypical sort of phraseology there. So he won't let that seep in. But at the same time, if you pay a guy like CeeDee Lamb, and CeeDee Lamb's a great receiver, top 10 receiver in the entire league. He's a damn good receiver. A number one on most teams in the league that don't have like the upper echelon of upper echelon receivers like a Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, any of those types of guys. CeeDee Lamb, you're not going to do a whole lot better than him as a number one receiver. So I understand if they do decide to pay him first. He is still, coming off his rookie season. He's going to get massive money in the open market. If he makes it to the open market, probably top of the line sort of receiver money, if I had to guess. But at the same time, this guy, Dak Prescott's been there for years and years and years. He stabilized the franchise. Gave you an unexpected transition from late career Tony Romo to the next phase of the franchise. You draft him in the 4th round, you expect him to be a backup. All of a sudden, he's thrust into the starting lineup in preseason, and it's been off to the races ever since from the quarterback position. It's an interesting question of priorities there when it comes to who they decide to pay. I'm fascinated, absolutely fascinated by this, and it all kind of centers around the big money that the quarterbacks are getting this offseason, and it's all connected in some way, shape, or form. At the negotiating table more than anywhere else, I am very interested to see how the Dolphins handle Tua, very interested to see how the Cowboys handle Dak Prescott. I could see it going a number of different ways, quite frankly. I could see a lot of possibilities. I tend to lean towards that Dak Prescott's getting paid. Tua is straight up in the air. Right, Mike Florio, the fan fiction got to me today, man. I'll tell you what, he made some solid points as to maybe moving on from Tua Tagovailoa. And at this point, I believe so much in Mike McDaniel. I don't know. I might actually lean towards letting Tua go in free agency and seeing if you can get something out there on the trade market. Maybe, God forbid, you have a terrible year, defense kind of collapses, and you're towards the top of the draft. It's not a strong QB draft this year, but hey, maybe there's a guy that emerges. The Dolphins might be in position to get a guy like that. And maybe you roll forward with a rookie QB. Maybe, again, Kirk Cousins is available in the trade market. Maybe he's not so fantastic in his comeback season from the Achilles. I don't know. It's a fascinating situation. I'd say both the Dolphins and the Cowboys are in fascinating situations with their quarterbacks. But the Dolphins particularly have a real decision on their hands. I don't think the Cowboys have a real decision on their hands. They're just kicking this can proverbially down the road. I'm not talking about cap anymore. I'm just talking about decisions. They're kicking that decision down the road. Maybe Jerry Jones is just hoping that he just dies and he doesn't have to deal with this in his lifetime. Valid possibility. Dude's like 86. Although that dude might live to be like 120. He's probably got organ farms out there. I don't know. You could make that argument. It's certainly a possibility. I don't know. I'm not reporting anything here. I'm just speculating wildly. But we're talking about Jerry Jones's organ farm and what the Cowboys are going to do. Maybe talking about Jerry Jones wait until he dies to have the quarterback contract taken care of. I'm losing steam fast, boys and girls, but that's a good signal that it's time to move on to the next story here. So, what do we got next? Aaron Rodgers, oh boy, the gift that keeps on giving for shows like this and sports shows all around. I'm sure if you listened to any modicum of sports talk last week, especially when this first came out, you were well aware of this, but to the people that weren't, Aaron Rodgers missed mandatory minicamp entirely for an unknown event, as to this point, still unknown, which was an unexcused absence, inexcused if you ask Robert Saleh. Hassan Reddick quietly missed minicamp as well. This is, honestly, whether the Jets fans like it or not, whether the Rodgers sycophants like it or not, whether they acknowledge it or not, this is a big deal. This is a big deal for Rodgers not to be at camp. It's a big deal for Hassan Reddick to not be at camp, but it's overshadowed by how big of a deal that Rodgers is not at camp. Whether they want to admit it or not, it's a huge deal just because, look, and I'm not the first person to bring this up, but it's worth contextualizing this conversation. Back in January, Aaron Rodgers stood up on the pulpit and said, we've got to flush everything that's not about winning out of the building. And I think, me and everyone else who's tired of this bullshit just rolled their eyes through the back of their heads, down 5th Street, out of the city, towards Cincinnati. It was laughable. We all knew it at the time. And, this was all on the heels of Aaron Rodgers going weekly on the McAfee show, just saying some outlandish bullshit, not giving a fuck. It doesn't really affect him. It's not a thing that affects him, and he was away from the team, so he couldn't really see how it affected the team, quite frankly. He just kind of parachuted in for game days, and got in not Christian Hackett. I don't know, Coach Hackett, that guy. Whatever his first name is, I forget. If he was a good offensive coordinator, I would know his first name. Nathaniel Hackett. There it is. I talked myself into the answer there. But yeah, he just parachute in during the game days, getting Nathaniel Hackett's ear, getting Zach Wilson's ear, put his hands all on the offense, even though he hadn't been there the entire week for game planning. He was just a constant distraction. So even at the time, that was laughable. Then you fast forward through the offseason. You get to mandatory minicamp, and if you were focusing on just winning, maybe, just maybe, this is just a wild sort of, idea. So bear with me here. It's going to be hard to follow, but maybe if you care only about winning, you cancel that event. You don't go to that event out of town, and instead, now again, I'm just spitballing here. Instead, maybe you show up to the mandatory minicamp so you can lead your team and get some rapport with the guys who you had, all of one series with last year in live game action in the regular season. I know it's a crazy idea. I'm the first one to admit it's wild. It's out there. It's not something you see every day from the starting quarterback. By the way, how many other starting quarterbacks do you think were in mandatory minicamp this year? That's a good question. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people skip, right? Like it's not a real big deal that Aaron Rodgers wasn't there. Oh, the other 31 quarterbacks were at mandatory minicamp? Huh. That's interesting. Interesting that they would show up to something that's so menial, so not involved with winning at all. It's just getting rid of the facetious attitude here. It's just more of the same from Aaron Rodgers. On the surface, he seems like a good leader. He seems like a guy that can rally the troops. And, when he's in the building, I'm sure that is the case. I'm sure he can, talk to guys, relate to dudes, especially about the football stuff. Hey, maybe some people believe his crackpot ideas as well. I'm sure, it's a big locker room. You're going to find your crowd somewhere, absolutely, with your ideas off of the field. I think there's no real denying that when Aaron Rodgers is on the field and in the facility, he does a good job with the leadership stuff. It's just everything around Aaron Rodgers. It's exemplified by this missing mandatory minicamp for still an event that we don't really know what it was. We just know it was, quote from Robert Saleh, an event that was very important to him. Still an inexcused absence. It's everything. It's pretty much everything that Aaron Rodgers says in the media. Post ayahuasca, Aaron Rodgers has just been on a certified bender of just guzzling all of the worst takes that you could imagine and just throwing them out on national television. I can't wait for Aaron Rodgers Tuesdays again on the McAfee show this year, but I digress on that front. It's just everything. There's too many things to count. Aaron Rodgers, when he is in the building, when he is just doing football, he's a fantastic player. He's a good leader. It's the second that he steps off that practice field and steps in front of that mic and goes on whatever weird trips he goes on, both literally and figuratively in the offseason. It's all this shit that just swirls around every team he's been on, from the Packers to now the Jets. Especially late in his career, again, post-ayahuasca, he has just been, and he will deny this till the cows come home, he has been more about himself than he has been about the team dynamic. That's a flat-out fact, and you can go look back. Hell, I used to be a defender of Aaron Rodgers because he is a fantastic player. He won back-to-back MVPs coming off of COVID, and, he was a great player. Postseason success to show for that? None whatsoever, but he was a great player for a long time, and you can live with that. Really, over the last couple of years, I have really changed my tune on Aaron Rodgers, and I just think, there's more to leading a football team than just what you do when you're in the facility. It's about what you do when you're in front of the mic as well. And you don't have to be a robot. You don't have to be just some guy doing the cookie cutter answers. You can add some personality in there, but you don't need to be taking focus away from what's happening with your team with these crazy, outlandish controversies that he seemed to find himself in week after week after week. And hey, maybe if he's playing football, he'll be less prone to controversy, though, the evidence in Green Bay the past couple of years before this past year when he had the Achilles would tell you otherwise. But, it's one of those things where, I don't know, on paper, the Jets have a great football team, fantastic defense. The offensive line is revamped this offseason. Credit to the Jets for doing the smart thing by drafting Olufashanu in the first round this year. Almost forgot his name. But, drafting Olufashanu, good idea. You bring in a couple of aging veteran offensive linemen to fill the holes elsewhere, and it looks like at the very least it'll be better than it was last year. And you got a little youth injection there with Fashanu as well, and we'll see what he turns into. But I thought that was a good pickup for them. The receivers still very good. Breece Hall is one of the best young backs in the league, from top to bottom, including Aaron Rodgers. They have one of the better rosters in the AFC. I think they have the best roster in the AFC East for sure. But just with the leadership situation, Robert Saleh as well, I'm not letting him off the hook here either. If he just excused that absence, maybe it opens up a can of worms inside the facility. I could see that, talking about leadership. If you let Aaron Rodgers do it, it sends a message to the rest of the team that maybe he is above the rules. I get that. But at the same time, just making it an unexcused absence, Aaron Rodgers did put him in a tough spot with that one. So, because, what is he going to do? What is he going to do? He's going to, on one hand, if you excuse Aaron Rodgers, you just essentially say, he is above the rules. And if you don't excuse it, we're here talking about it right now. So it's either, a controversy in the building and outside of the building, or it's a controversy in the building and in the building alone. I thought Robert Saleh handled that about it not as poorly as he could. He didn't totally lambast Aaron Rodgers. Didn't handle it great though. Not handling it great at all. There's just something about this team. I just don't know. I don't know. On paper, they should be really good this year. With the leadership situation, all that's swirling around it, the coaching, I'm still yet to be convinced that Robert Saleh can hire an offensive coordinator worth half a shit. And that obviously includes Nathaniel Hackett. So, and, the leadership outside of that hasn't been fantastic. And you got the weirdest quarterback in the entire NFL as the undisputed leader of the team. There's just a lot of room for implosion, and I don't know if it will happen. I am saying, though, if it does, I will not be surprised, and it comes down to who you have running the team at all levels. So, with that, enough talking about Aaron Rodgers. Let's keep it moving from here. All right, so T. Higgins did what was basically the only option. He has signed his franchise tender, and that is official as of today. That essentially puts an end to the contract standoff, if you can call it that. Debatable whether it was ever a real standoff or not. I think it was a standoff on T. Higgins' end. I think the Brown family, the one that owns the Bengals, was just sitting back like, he'll sign eventually. I'm gonna go golf. I don't really care. Because they knew, T. Higgins didn't have a choice in the matter, and they knew they weren't going to extend him this offseason. So at least they weren't going to extend him for what T. Higgins wants. They're going to lowball the hell out of him with every offer they do. And I'm not even sure there's been any contract negotiations here recently. So, yeah, I'm just not, I don't think there was ever a real standoff. But, whatever pseudo standoff it was has now come to an end. There's no question in my mind at this point. This will be the final season that T. Higgins is in Cincinnati. The immediate question is, for this season, in the upcoming 2024 season, can the Bengals make one last run before they inject some youth into the receiving corps in 2025? I think they can. The problem is, on the defensive side, they're still average at best, talent-wise. They got back Von Bell from free agency. That didn't work out at all with his little contract there with the Carolina Panthers. It didn't work out for a lot of players, though. So Lou Anarumo knows the player, knows how to scheme around the player. and he's really good at scheming. But you saw towards the end of last year, I mean, they just were not up to snuff talent wise, and I don't think that's going to be any different this year. Offensively, you hope Joe Burrow stays healthy, but he's had a couple straight seasons now where he's had something nagging, something lingering, and it culminates in last season where tears a ligament in his wrist and he's out for the year. So I don't know. If Joe Burrow stays healthy, they've got a puncher's chance, if nothing else. I just don't see them on the level of the Kansas City Chiefs, for one. In their division, I mean, that's going to be a competitive one this year. I don't really see their roster on par with the Browns. Maybe they're right there with the Ravens at this point, with all the Ravens lost this offseason. The Steelers are right there with them as well. They got crazy amounts of competition just in their division. And, I mean, we're not even talking about teams like, the Houston Texans taking advantage of a quarterback on a rookie deal, and C.J. Stroud, who is already a top 10 quarterback, could vault himself into the top 5 this year. Hell, even the Bills. The Bills are like right on the Bengals level. So when you got Joe Burrow, you do have a puncher's chance. When you got Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase being that number one, that is the real puncher's chance in all of this. Make no mistake about it. So it's not like they have zero chance. The chance is well below 50%, though, of making a deep playoff run this year. This is the year they got to do it, though. That's bottom line. Because I don't know what it's going to look like next year without T. Higgins there. Maybe I'm overreacting a little bit, because when you have a great quarterback, Aaron Rodgers showed this for years with the good years in Green Bay. Pat Mahomes has shown this in his career so far. You don't need necessarily an elite receiving core in order to have an elite passing offense when you have an elite quarterback. There's a lot of elite in that sentence right there. But it's so maybe T. Higgins isn't necessarily the be-all, end-all in the passing game. Maybe you can get away with a little bit of a youth injection next year, especially if you draft the right guys and you put them around Joe Burrow. I could see that. You could sell me on that. I just feel like the bird in the hand right now. You got two really good wide receivers. T. Higgins, a lower-end number one wide receiver in my estimation. Jamar Chase, top end of the league, top 5 sort of wide receiver. You got a top 5 quarterback, probably top 3 when it's all said and done. It's just the defense is what's going to hold them back. I could see them in the playoffs. They go against a team like the Chiefs, and that's another thing. You got Chris Jones there, basically just picking who he wants, picking the weak link and rushing at him. I mean, the Bengals' offensive line isn't fantastic. They're solidly average, but they're not fantastic, and they have holes at certain spots. I could see a team like hell, even the Jets, with how good that defensive front is. Jets, the Chiefs, who I just said there and somehow forgot their name. You go into a playoff game, offense gets shut down because they're just giving up rush right up the middle to some elite defender. And the defense can't stop a nosebleed because they haven't really been able to stop a nosebleed all year, unfortunately. So that to me feels like how this season is going to end up for the Bengals. They'll probably have a solid enough regular season, barring the health of Joe Burrow, to get into the playoffs when it's all said and done. I don't have a whole lot of faith in them to make a run beyond that. Again, a puncher's chance. When you got Joe Burrow, you have always got a puncher's chance when it's all said and done. But if you just go pound for pound, they got a lot of ground to make up, and I'm just not sure that they can do it right now. But D. Higgins is there for one more year. Let's see if they can make some magic. Got to clear that throat a little bit, man. Getting phlegmy. Getting Flemish up in here. All right, so now we're getting out of the football stuff there. That was fun. That was a fun couple segments there. Let's talk about some stuff. Little open-ended discussion here. And this was kind of a brainchild, not a brainchild of Howard Bryant, but he got me thinking about this stuff. And Howard Bryant, he's a libby-lib, he's a big-time left guy. So you don't have to agree with everything he says. Sports takes good. Sports takes are good though. So you take the message with the messenger, all that sort of stuff, yada yada yada. And Howard Bryant was talking about, because he's from Boston, he's obviously very ingrained in the Boston sports scene. He's talking about how the Celtics made this team that looks like they're going to win the championship. And it is more analytics based and more process oriented, organizationally oriented than what the NBA has been for really just the last generation of players. LeBron ushered in the era of player empowerment, player run teams, essentially stars run the teams, all that sort of stuff. The Boston Celtics kind of bucked that mold, leaned even harder into the analytics, leaned even harder into the organizational stability and the organizational brilliance. Which, I mean, hey, bravo, Brad Stevens. When you got a guy, I mean, making upgrades, going from Marcus Smart to Drew Holiday, and then bringing in Kristaps Porzingis, I mean, hats off to him. He did a great job. But one thing I know is that when a team wins the championship, it's a copycat league. Every league is a copycat league. Don't let anyone tell you different. When someone wins with one strategy, and there are teams maybe in the middle or the bottom, not quite breaking through that ceiling, looking for something else to do, they see that blueprint that maybe wasn't there before, and they say, you know what? Maybe I can do that. So, with that, I had a question, spurred by Howard Bryant. Thank you to Howard Bryant for getting the brains juices going. Are the Boston Celtics going to ring in a new era of leaning even harder into the analytics with this dominant championship run? And it has been dominant. I mean, I understand they had some fortuitous injury luck with, as far as the teams that they were playing against. The best players just kept on getting hurt while they were playing against them. And if they didn't get hurt while they were playing against them, it was like the Knicks. Jalen Brunson gets hurt, and then the Pacers go into the finals. And then next thing you know, Tyrese Halliburton is hurt. So they've gotten very lucky with this, but they have been dominant. They have been absolutely fantastic this postseason, and it has been around more so the organization and leaning hard into the analytics than it has been the players on the court. It's more about an all-around team. It's more about a philosophy than just one player going out there and dominating. So I could absolutely see some team like, maybe the Pistons or the San Antonio Spurs, though. I mean, you got Victor Wembanyama. You don't necessarily want to lean against that guy. He's going to be a problem for a long, long time. But teams that are kind of, searching for an identity don't necessarily have that top-end player like a Big Vic over there with the San Antonio Spurs, that maybe just look at this and say, you know what, we're going to adopt that strategy. It worked very well for the Boston Celtics in that championship run. It got them very close several times before that. Maybe we can try our hand at that. And this is how trends start. It's how the Warriors ended up changing the league. Steph Curry in particular ended up changing the league. He was shooting all of those threes and making them. No one thought you could win a championship like that. Then next thing you know, 2015 happens, they win their first one, and you look down the league rosters 5 years later, it is just all 3-and-D up and down the roster. You're shooting threes from half court, basically, for a lot of these guys. Absolutely changed the complexity of the league, and it started after that year one championship. Yes, they won 3 more after that, but it started after that year one. I think the Boston Celtics could have a similar sort of impact, leaning even harder into that stuff. And it's attractive from an organizational standpoint because it puts the control, the power back in the hands of the organization. You don't necessarily have to, leverage away your control to some domineering all-star level, high NBA level sort of player. You can kind of, build out the team, build out the roster, and make it a system thing. Very based on analytics, very based on the culture of the organization as a whole, as opposed to just leaning into that one player. It's a very attractive option for a lot of teams, and that's why I think if and when the Boston Celtics close this thing out, if you're listening to me now on Tuesday, there's a good chance they close it out on Monday. I think that this could usher in a new era. Any of you who think that the analytics is going to start kind of tapering off a little bit, think again. Think again, because this Boston Celtics championship run is about to create some copycats, and I think they're going to be solid for a good while here. So they will continue to prove that this method works. I wish more teams had the creativity to create their own strategy. It seems like the trendsetters, like the Warriors, like the Boston Celtics in this case, kind of came up with their ideas all on their own. I think the league would be a lot more fun if it wasn't just copycat left and right. If people had a little bit more creativity with this sort of stuff. But, creativity can get you fired as well. So I understand it from the other perspective. I just, I hate it. The league would be a lot more interesting if we had a bunch of contrasting styles a la college football, college sports in general. But I digress. I'll get off my soapbox on that one. Just watch. Just watch over the next 3 to 5 years. If the Boston Celtics win this year, then they have another great season next year. Honestly, it starts with this year. If and when they win this year, I think you're going to be seeing a noted difference from a lot of teams, maybe not the very top, who have gotten, good in their own right. Even them though, you're going to start seeing kind of little aspects sneak in of what the Boston Celtics are doing this year, leaning more into the system than the individual players. Maybe you see a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves start leaning into a little bit more of that strategy. Not necessarily leaning completely on Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert, and maybe looking for more of a team-centered, system-focused philosophy that leans very heavily into the analytics. I'm telling you right now, though, when the Boston Celtics win, if and when they win, barring an insane comeback from Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks, you will see changes at the bottom echelons of the league. The bottom half of the league is going to start approaching things a little bit differently based on how the Boston Celtics are doing things right now, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm getting ahead of this new ebb and this new flow in the sport of the NBA before a lot of people are catching on. I think I'm going to be looking back here in a couple years. Maybe I'm still doing this podcast. Maybe I'm not. We'll see how things work out, and I'll be looking back saying, I was right. I am smart. I wouldn't say that. People might say, if I tell them, hey, I predicted that the NBA was going to be like this 3 years ago, you can go back and check the tapes on, June 18th, 2024. I said this right off the dome, and people are going to say, wow, you might be a genius. I wouldn't say that. No. That'd be too cocky of me to say. I'd never say such a conceited thing, but, people might be saying. All right, so we got one more headline here. One more headline in this show, and then we're going to get y'all out of here on, a decent little episode here. Probably going to be pushing an hour by the time I get through this, though we'll see how long this goes. Really more of, I especially in the offseason, I like to put a fun headline at the end. One that I don't necessarily care about, but it is fun to kind of just riff off of. The one I'm looking at this week, Joey Chestnut has been banned from the Nathan's hot dog eating contest for taking an endorsement deal from Impossible Foods. Democracy is dead. That's the bottom line here. Democracy is dead. They want to take him out just because he's eating plant dogs, just because he's not being sponsored by Nathan's anymore. Just corporate greed and capitalism getting in the way of everything that we love. Whoever wins the Nathan's hot dog eating contest this year, congratulations. You get a big ol' asterisk next to your name because the king wasn't competing in it. You all know it. You might win that thing and you might be smiling up there on the stage. You might be celebrating, but when it's quiet afterwards, you're getting those bubble guts because you just ate like 67 hot dogs or however many you just ate. You're about to just lay down for a day and wonder what you did with your life. You feel like absolute shit physically. But you know what? You look back, you look at your win and you say, man, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't really a real Nathan's hot dog eating contest championship because the king wasn't here. We all know it. The 14-time, 15-time, however many damn times he's won that event, the greatest of all time wasn't there. And, since he wasn't there, since the best of the best wasn't competing, this is an asterisk championship. It is what it is. You all know it. I know it. They know it. Nathan's knows it. Hell, Impossible even knows it. Everyone knows that this is a sham. It is something that should be addressed, should be rescinded. The man should be eating, just shoving 80 to 90 hot dogs down his gullet come July 4th. That's the most American tradition of all time. It brings in everything we like. We love hot dogs on Independence Day. We love watching the hot dog eating contest because it's a tradition. It's gluttony. It is the celebration of gluttony. It is everything that we love as Americans. And if you don't have the greatest of all time in there, count me out. Count me out. I'm not watching it this year. Did I watch it last year? No. But I'm not watching it this year either. And this is a protest. Some may call me one of the most noble people in sports media. I wouldn't. Some people would, but I wouldn't. It's just not a thing that is befitting of my incredibly humble status here. But, this is just something that when they ask about when you knew democracy was dead in this United States of America, this is a moment I'll look back on and say, you know what? That's it right there. Joey Chestnut getting banned from the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. A man who was more synonymous with the event than Nathan's themselves. Just getting booted out. Just disgusting. No democratic process whatsoever. If you ask the people, you put a poll out there, do we want Joey Jaws Chestnut just shoving wholesale wiener down his throat on July the 4th? It'd be 99-1 in the popularity ranks. And hey, some people are hopping on Nathan's side saying, "Oh, you can't be eating plant dogs." Shut up, man. That's just not how this thing works. That's just, you know what? If you dig down deep in your heart, so maybe it's 80-20. Still, 80% of people want to see Joey Jaws Chestnut just absolutely right down the throat with all those wieners. We all want it. We need it even. What is July the 4th if we don't have Joey Jaws Chestnut just eviscerating 80 hot dogs before our very eyes? It's not a real holiday at all. It's not a real holiday at all. No one wants to, celebrate independence for America. Oh, I don't know. What is all that without just a man eviscerating a whole platter of hot dogs? More hot dogs than most people eat in a year. He is eaten in like 10 minutes. And without that, you hate to see the America that you grew up knowing and loving dying before your very eyes. It's a tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy. It is a miscarriage of justice, and we as a people need to band together to boycott the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. They've gone too far. They have flexed their muscles and flexed their power one too many times. And the people are not going to stand for this. Okay, the people are not going to stand for this. Watching Joey Chestnut get hosed out of his rightful championship, the right for him to compete for a championship at the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. It sickens me. You sicken me, Nathan's. Absolutely sicken me. Sicken me more than 80 hot dogs in 10 minutes would sicken me. That's how sick I am right now. But that being said, worth noting, Netflix did, however, swoop in to announce the head-to-head between Chestnut and Kobayashi in a hot dog eating contest the day after this news dropped. Which does make me think this was a little bit of a marketing stunt. So maybe everything I just said is wrong. And hey, if Nathan's ponies up, gets Joey Jaws back into the contest, all is forgiven. All is forgiven. And am I going to watch Chestnut versus Kobayashi on Netflix? No, I wasn't going to do that anyways. I don't necessarily watch a whole lot of hot dog eating contests, but I do know it's the most American sport on this whole goddamn planet, and you're not going to take that away from us. You, Nathan's, I'm looking directly at you. You make eye contact with me right now. You need to do the right thing. You need to put Joey Jaws in the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. And with that, thank you all so much for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. As always, it's been a pleasure, folks. It's been a pleasure. We do this every Tuesday of every week. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays during the season. It is just Tuesdays during the offseason, because if I did Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would have to start counting the shirts in this closet. Maybe counting the towels as well. That's an easy count right there. There's 4 right there. Actually, no. There's a hand towel up there as well, so there's 5. But we do it once during the offseason, just so you don't have to have 2 episodes like this a week where I'm just out of my mind, just loopy, just running off of pure caffeine and grit and sandpaper right now. But you can hit us up on And most of the listing platforms that people really care about, I'm talking about YouTube. I'm talking about Spotify. I'm talking about Apple. I'm talking even about Amazon Music. You go there, you hit subscribe. Subscribe wherever you're listening to this thing. Share it. Help us grow this thing a little bit more. We've been getting some good listenership here over the last, several weeks or so. So let's keep it up. Let's keep it sharing. Let's keep this thing growing a little bit more. And if you want to contact the show, hit me up at the Twitter, X, whatever you call it. Again, if you call it X, I don't trust you. But hit me up there at CalebVUA. Link will be down in the description. Follow me. Hit up the DMs if you want to contribute something to the show. I'm open to all sorts of suggestions here, so long as they're good. That's the best way I can put it. So long as they're good, I'll consider putting them in the show. Or if you want to contact me the old-fashioned way, we do have an email, unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com, if you want to send in your opinions, your takes, your segment ideas for the show. All are welcome. So go ahead either way, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be through the email. I appreciate your feedback. Hell, leave a comment on the YouTube as well. That could work either way. Give me some feedback. I'm looking forward to hearing it. All right, so with that said, thank you for tuning into Unqualified Analysis. As always, I have got no clue what I'm talking about. One thing I learned this week, though, when Alexander the Great besieged the island of Tyre in 332 BC, he won the battle by filling the channel between the island and the mainland of what is now Libya. Over 2,350 years later, Tyre is still not an island because Alexander the Great filled in that channel. 2,350 plus years later, still not an island. Insane. With that, I will leave y'all to it. I'm going to go edit this thing and watch some NBA basketball. See y'all next Tuesday. Deuces.